Lawrence, Jackson County, and severe thunderstorm, and then severe thunderstorm warnings continue for Perry County as well. Now, if this storm ultimately holds together, that is on a track that would take it through northern Harrison, part of Floyd and Clark. We're still a ways off here. And these types of storms traditionally are the kind that produce quick little tornado kind of spin-ups. They're normally not long duration tornadoes. Looking at it from Storm View HD right now, what you see here, I'll take you out to a wide perspective so you can kind of start off with what we're looking at from the storm as a whole. What you'll see is there's two specific lines in the area. One line that's struggling that goes from around Frankfort through, let's say, around Bowling Green. The southern part of that line is severe. In fact, we're seeing severe storms heading towards the Columbia area. And then we have this area that's on the back edge, and this area is now the part that's gone severe at this point, and this is where our greatest concern lies. The storm specifically that's showing signs of rotation, and Jeremy Kaplan and I have been watching it here pretty closely. You know, Jeremy, this kind of storm traditionally, and looking at it, it does show that sign of having a supercell core to it. But when you actually look at the tail of it, it's had some quick rotation, but nothing that I would call major at this point. I think if a tornado to be a quick spinner.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And, you know, it's got kind of that Boeing look to it as well. So in addition to the possibility of a tornado in your area, you're going to get some wind with this. So if you live in English, you definitely need to be taking shelter right now as the storm moves towards you. It is a very complex scenario as we've been watching all evening long. We've got a lot of thunderstorms to the south. We had a complex of storms that was over the Louisville metropolitan area a little bit while earlier. Now we're getting a break, and this actual storm is developing right along the cold front itself. Right. And of course, a lot of energy focused in that short area.
You know, and that's the kind of thing that Jeremy just mentioned, a good point, that one of the things we're talking about is you see how Louisville's kind of carved out a hole in between that rain, and that may allow this storm to intensify here just a little bit. You know, I still think Louisville's fully in play for severe weather. When we talked earlier, as we looked at the scenario here, and I'll put this whole thing in motion so you can get a sense of what's occurring and take you out a little bit wider. That rain that was in Louisville, in a sense, hurt the atmosphere a little bit. And to the south, there's a pristine part of the atmosphere that's been untouched, and we have a very strong area of severe weather moving through Nashville, a very intense line as we go towards Mississippi, and then in our area, we've got what is this area of showers that's now getting caught up to by the second line, which is actually the cold front. So as the cold front overtakes this initial line, you normally do get severe in this kind of a scenario, and that's what's starting to occur right now. The most dangerous part of the storm, you'll notice, is a very, very narrow area. The Weather Service has it pinned beautifully, and they're taking it through West Fork, through the Switzer Crossroads area. So if you live right now in West Fork, look, it's time to take your tornado safety precautions now. The location that you'll want to get is you want to go downstairs, you want to get underneath something. If you can get to the center part of your house, that's where you want to go. That would be the safest area, and you want to keep away from windows at all costs here. So West Fork right now, if you have an interior closet, that's a safe place to go. This is going to be one of those spots where you would want to be. You wouldn't want to be on a wall or a window or on the outside facing side of the house, because that's where we could have the biggest problems. Now, from a lightning standpoint, I'll tell you, traditionally you get a lot of lightning strikes in a scenario where there's a high tornado potential. Now, we don't see a lot of lightning strikes here, so this is kind of the lower end where you can get the quick spin up, and I think that's more of what we're warning for. Now, Switzer Crossroads, you need to be prepared for that to move into your area as well. And Jeremy, I'm noticing warnings now extending down that line. It kind of looks like we may be going into that kind of a scenario where we get a lot of warnings issued along the line. I see Tell City's in a warning as well now, and also we have Greene County in the southern part of our area in a warning as well.
Yeah, and with that cold front, as it accelerates off to the east, I think it's very likely that we will see more severe thunderstorm warnings issued for the possibility of high winds. We've mentioned over the last several days that these spin-ups would be possible along the line. That, of course, is what we're seeing there for northern Perry and central and eastern portions of Crawford County.
And Rick, by the way, I've got 3D1 and 3D2 ready for you to blog. In case you're curious, we're going to continue coverage on TV, and we'll continue coverage on Facebook. If you want to find me, it's Mark Weinberg on Facebook. And you'll be able to follow us that way as well. And also on Twitter, we'll be tweeting away here. And then, you know, so we kind of have a social side to this. And I would love to hear what you're seeing. Your reports become very, very important to us as we go through these kind of scenarios, because what you're seeing out there is very important to us, and it helps us out quite a bit. But that area, you know, in southern Crawford County right now is the greatest area of concern here. And the Storms Prediction Center has from time to time put out what we refer to as discussions regarding what's going on right now. They're continuing just to say that the severe weather threat continues along this line. Jeremy, if you could take, after we do the track, I'll send that to you, and then come on over to 3D after that, and let me take a little bit of an analysis here from a 3D perspective.
Okay, and what we're doing is we're laying a track on the most likely area that would contain the tornadic activity. It is moving rapidly off to the north and east. It will be near Carefree within the next 5 to 10 minutes, about 7 minutes from now. Whiskey Run, 12 minutes from now. Moberly, 15 minutes from now. And in Ramsey, in less than 20 minutes. Again, the storm is moving very fast, more than 60 miles per hour.
And Jeremy, looking at it on 3D, if we could, I'm going to actually switch sources here while I'll let you work on that workstation. I'm going to take it over to 3D. And what I'll show you here is what we refer to as velocity. Now, I know this kind of looks like a bunch of colors, and you may be wondering, what am I looking at, and why do I really care? Well, what's important here is where you're seeing the reds and the greens come together, because what you're noticing on radar here is the velocity in one direction. So red's blowing away from the radar and green is blowing towards the radar. So if you were to kind of finish the circle here, what you're seeing is rotation going around where those greens and those reds come together. And that's occurring south of English. Specifically, right along 64, I'm seeing rotation right now where it junctions with Indiana 37. If you're in that area, it's time to get away from that area and take it safe. I don't think you want to take the risk. From a rotation standpoint, I'm seeing on one side about 37-mile-an-hour rotation. On the other side, I've got somewhere around 28 miles an hour. So I'm catching about 55-mile-an-hour rotation on this. That's not extraordinarily strong rotation, but still some. And normally when we look at this, this is called normalized rotation. Normally when I'm assessing a severe or tornado threat, I'll be looking for greens, and I don't see any on there. Jeremy, we use that kind of philosophy when we talk about normalized rotation values where green means go. Right. And I'm not seeing the green right now. It doesn't mean that we can't get that in between one of our scans here, but it still looks to me not like a long duration style tornado, but if we catch one, it would be a quick spinner.
No, and remind me again, I think that warning is pretty short in duration. Rick, you have the time on that. I believe it's only to around 9:15, correct?
Jeremy, I'm checking right now, too. I've got the tornado warning till 9:15, so we've only got another 8 minutes on the tornado warning. And you know what? If the National Weather Service at 9:15 decides to release the warning, we're going to release you back to programming. We have zero desire to sit here and talk on TV and just kind of waste your time. If there's no threat to life and property, we'll release the warning here. So what we have right now is severe thunderstorm warnings that are in the western part, or just about to go into Breckinridge County. We need to be thinking about Meade County. We've got severe thunderstorm warnings potentially towards even Harrison County. And if this holds together, Jeremy, about 50 to maybe 60 or 70 minutes till it would be in Louisville. These things are racing off to the east at close to 60 miles an hour. Yeah,
they really are moving. And it has a lot to do with that wind that's just above us right now. We've talked about pretty much all week about how fast those winds would be moving. And you go up 4,000 or 5,000 feet above us, and it's scooting along about 70 to 80 miles per hour out there. So certainly these storms have a lot of momentum behind them. That's why they are traveling so quickly. And with the strongest storms, as they tap into that energy that's just above the surface, that will result in the possibility of wind damage. And I'm sure that's what's prompting those severe thunderstorm warnings that are ongoing for Perry County, and again that tornado warning as well for Crawford County.
Right, and still from a 3D perspective on this, I'm still not seeing anything that makes me feel overly concerned about a tornado right now. I feel like a quick spin-up was to occur. I can't take that off the table. I just don't see anything that would show a large-scale severe or tornado threat here. Jeremy, let's do a little bit of tracking. I'm going to spend some time, go over to the wall, and we can track the areas along the storm here and give you some times so you know when to expect it. But remember, if this thing holds together, we've got about 60 minutes or so until it gets into Louisville. And I think there's reason to believe that we would at least see in the metro some warnings here. The most dangerous part of the storm is right near the Switzer Crossing area near West Fork, and that's really right along 64 here. So the most dangerous part of the storm coming down 64, which obviously is not what we want to see. That could be a real problem here. So from some times here, Jeremy, let's track the area near Switzer Crossing, moving to the north and east somewhere around 60 miles per hour, and identify some cities that are in the path of that and that could expect that part of the storm to get into your area. So if you'll notice, with a part of the storm that Jeremy's tracking is the far south part of the storm. The far southwest part of the storm is traditionally where we get tornadoes. So Little St. Louis in 14 minutes, Ramsey it'll be 20 minutes from now, Greenville, if the storm holds together, 33 minutes from now, in Carr 44. I still think the primary threat's 60-mile-an-hour winds. I really do. But I can't rule out a quick spin up on there. And then along the line, which continues to be strong enough to produce severe. There's not a lot of lightning on it. It's not a super intense line, but still enough that we're going to probably see more severe thunderstorm warnings. So Jeremy's going to track that whole edge of the line, and we can get an idea of some cities that are in the area that could probably see up to 60-mile-an-hour winds. And that would include the New Amsterdam area in 20 minutes. If it holds together for Corydon, 24. If it holds together, Webster, 33. And if it holds together for New Albany, 39 minutes from now is when that storm would get into your area here. So that kind of covers what we're looking at right now from a severe and a tornado perspective. By the way, the tornado warning has been lifted for Perry County, now only in effect for Crawford County, and the National Weather Service is giving us an updated statement. So I think it's worth taking a look at that real quickly here. National Weather Service is stating here, still potential for a radar or a quick tornado. And they're talking about from an impact standpoint that we could see just sporadic damage if a tornado was to form. They're not talking about anything different than we are. They're saying if a tornado spun up, it would be, you know, one of those quick versions. And Jeremy, right near Switzer Crossing, I see those greens and reds coming together. That to me looks like the most dangerous area.
It is. Let's go ahead and put another track on that. Make sure that we've got this location fine-tuned for you. It is moving off to the north and east, I believe at around 60, 65 miles per hour. So on that pace, it's going to be near Whiskey Run here by 10 minutes from now. Fredericksburg, 18 minutes from now. Morgan, 21 minutes from now. And if it holds together, that's a big if. Greenville, about 26 minutes from now. Perhaps New Pekin, about a half hour from now. What will probably happen is this area of rotation will probably dissipate well before that time. Right. But you'll still have to deal with that line of storms, and that could produce damaging winds. You know, one of the problems that we have in these kind of scenarios is how the National Weather Service is going to deal with these kind of storms, because you know, quite frankly, if they do tornado, they do so normally very, very quickly. Right. Here's an interesting one, Jeremy, just out of St. Meinrad, Indiana, reports of 1 1/4 size hail. And they're reporting it as the spiky kind of hail. So yeah, that's interesting. That would mean that there's at least a solid updraft. You normally can't get hail spikes onto the hail unless you have pretty strong vertical motion here. So, you know, it's kind of surprising to see that kind of hail without many lightning strikes on this. But nonetheless, that's what we're dealing with. We're still watching two distinct lines, one that poses a threat to our southeast counties, and then the one that poses a threat to our western counties, which ultimately, if it does hold together, would get into the Louisville area. Now, there's 2 more minutes that we're going to stay under this tornado warning. And as I stated earlier, if the National Weather Service chooses to lift the warning, we're not going to stay in. We don't want to sit here and hold you captive. If the Weather Service deems the threat minimal and drops the warning, then we'll go ahead and release you back to programming. So looking at this as a whole, we see our area of strong to severe storms. If I was to highlight 2 areas of concern, I would say there's an area in our northwest counties that would be in the greatest risk. That's where we have that isolated tornado threat. You'll notice the lightning strike's not extensive here, so I don't think we're talking about an all-encompassing scenario where everybody would go under a severe thunderstorm or tornado warning, but we would see some. And then our far southeast counties, which would include areas like Greensburg, like Campbellsville and Columbia. And Jeremy, you know, it's warmer in our southern counties, and I would think the greatest severe weather threat would occur there. I completely agree. If you take just a step back and take a look at the big picture, as Mark mentioned, there are 2 distinct lines. That second one is associated with the cold front, but the first one seems to be robbing a lot of the moisture, and it's really doing some business to the south. Our friends down there in Nashville getting hit pretty hard right now. A portion of that activity making its way through Bowling Green, where there was a warning just a little while earlier, and that is going to translate into our southeastern counties. So if you live in places like Columbia, Campbellsville, Lebanon, I think you guys are primed for the prospect of, at the very least, some very strong winds here. And you can see that one little bowl-shaped segment just to the south of the Glasgow area. That is barreling to the northeast, and that could be a problem for Columbia and portions of Adair County here rather soon. Right, and I think, you know, I'm with you. I think that our southeast counties, you know, that Boeing segment you're talking about from around the Glasgow area, that's definitely something that would concern me.
That's something that we'll have to watch here. Looking at the warning here, we've got Storm View 3D up. I'm going to take a look over at the normalized rotation values, see if anything jumps off the map at us. North of Marengo, there's an area of rotation right now. That one is of interest. And then we've got the area of rotation that was along 64. National Weather Service, it appears, has allowed the warning to expire here. I just want to verify before I'm going to send you back over to programming. It does look like they allowed that tornado warning to expire as things stand right now. Now, if they decide to issue another tornado warning, we'll come back in and give you another update. As things stand right now, we'll send you back to programming. Keep it right here on WDRB for continuing weather updates. Strong to severe storms continue to move across our area. When this threat is done and when we'll see much cooler air with highs back in the 20s coming up next.
A very terrifying moment.
A woman points a gun at customers in a local store, and it's all caught on camera.
Pilots falling asleep in the cockpit. What else the investigation into a UPS crash that killed 2 is revealing.
The Corvette Museum turns disaster into triumph with a sinkhole that swallowed irreplaceable cars.
And Snorkel, the dog with 2 noses, can now breathe easy. Meet the family who's now his own.
From Louisville, WDRB News at 10 starts now.
Well, good evening and thanks for joining us, everyone. I'm David Scott.
And I'm Elizabeth Woolsey. A tornado watch in effect for parts of our area. Severe thunderstorms are moving through.
Chief Meteorologist Mark Weinberg tells us what we can expect overnight and who's at greatest risk of severe weather as several warnings have just been issued. Mark?
Correct. We have 8 counties that just went under severe thunderstorm warnings. I think we're going to see more as we go through the night here. The line is moving in our direction, and this is that intense cold front that we talked about. It has been very, very windy out ahead of the system, and I think this is, in a sense, a lot of the reason why you can get showers that produce severe winds, because we're seeing winds that are gusting as high as 45 miles per hour outside of the thunderstorms, and I think we're looking at a line that's in a process of intensifying right now. We've got flood warnings for the northern part of our area. We've got a flash flood watch that includes the Louisville area, and we've got severe thunderstorm warnings now for Jennings, for Clark Floyd County, for Meade, Hardin, Breckenridge, and Grayson County. We've got Jeremy and Rick DeLuca as well that are pushing towards social media. So if you are on Facebook or Twitter, you're going to be able to get the information that way as well. Let me show you where the strongest of the storms are right now. We've got an intense area north of North Vernon. This core here just north of Campbell likely to produce 60-mile-per-hour winds. That's the strongest part along that line. And then Henryville, Borden, Greenville, 60-mile-an-hour winds are moving across your area right now. Henryville, look, what I want to tell you here is this is not something that's like what we saw on March 2nd. We're talking about something potentially producing 60-mile-an-hour winds. Sellersburg, 14 minutes from now. Charlestown, 18 minutes. Bedford, 36. And when this line moved through Pekin, I did get a report on Facebook that there were multiple large tree limbs going down. In Louisville, we just went under a warning. Rick, by the way, Louisville just went into a severe thunderstorm warning, so we'll be blogging that. So that now puts the western part of Louisville in a severe thunderstorm warning. Let me get the latest information on that here quickly so I can pass that along to you, as that warning did just come out. National Weather Service issuing a severe thunderstorm warning for Jefferson County, Clark Floyd, and Harrison County. This goes until 10:30 for winds to 60 miles per hour. So Louisville, again, officially now under a severe thunderstorm warning, and will probably come back as this moves into the metro and stay with it. But Georgetown, Corydon through Central, that's where we've got the strongest winds along this line, likely gusting to 60, and then south along the line just west of Brandenburg, we've got severe winds potentially moving into Brandenburg. I would say 60-mile-an-hour winds from Irvington and Brandenburg seem likely. In fact, we are getting some lightning strikes out of that part of the line, and that traditionally does mean that the line could be intensifying just a little. I want to see that radar update go by just to make sure we're not looking at any Boeing structures. Nothing there overly concerning. From Willisburg, Lebanon through Campbellsville, we've got a severe just regular thunderstorms. And now we have a severe thunderstorm warning for Greene, for Taylor, and for Adair County. So we're definitely getting more active with a lot of warnings in our area. The strongest winds along this line moving through Edmonton, up to 60-mile-an-hour winds can be expected from the Gresham area through around Columbia. Now, putting this all into motion here, let me take you off to the north and roll the whole thing in motion. And you can see it's all racing off to the east. I don't think what we're going to deal with is tons of damage on this. I said it earlier and I'll say it again. We are going to get a lot of warnings out of this system. We'll see isolated wind gusts, maybe even more scattered wind gusts to 60 miles an hour. And remember, our tree limbs have been damaged by an ice storm, so tree limbs are likely to go down. Louisville is in a severe thunderstorm warning until 10:30. We'll come back as this comes into the city. We'll give you more complex or more complete coverage watching it go across the city. If you want continuing weather updates and I'm not on TV, follow me on Facebook or Twitter, Mark with a C, Weinberg, and we'll continue to have updates during the newscast, after the newscast, and through the night. We'll have an update here again for you on the severe thunderstorms moving through Louisville in a few minutes.
All right, thank you, Mark. Well, over the last few weeks, ice and snow have weakened trees in the area.
Today's high winds compounded the danger of downed limbs and power lines. Local power companies, though, including LG&E, say they're ready.
LG&E spokesperson Natasha Collins is on the phone with us right now. Natasha, thanks for joining us right now. We're taking a look at the LG&E outage map right now, and it looks like just a handful of customers are out of power right now. These storms are continuing to move through, though. What kind of preparations do you take in advance when you have a forecast like this?
Well, of course, when we have a storm like this, we're always monitoring the forecast, making sure we stay on top of the system as it approaches and as it's moving through, and we're doing that right now. Throughout the day, of course, we let our internal resources and our business partners know to be on standby and ready to respond as needed. And our crews, of course, are ready to go 24/7. They can respond anywhere within our service territory as they're needed. As you mentioned, right now we're seeing minimal impact both across the LG&E service territory and our KU service territory, so across our entire service territory across the state.
Well, what concerns do you have about what ice may have done to trees by weakening them recently? And in the future, what can people be doing to protect against that becoming a problem in future storms?
Well, of course, we take safety as a top priority, so we always urge our customers to stay away from any down power lines. If they see any lines down, they should always assume that they are live wires and not go near them. They can give us a call. Our number is 502-589-1444. They can report power lines, outages, or any other issues, gas leaks as well at that number. So we just urge them to stay away and to practice safety.
And Natasha, it's also possible, if you're out of power, to report this online. You can use your mobile device, right, to report an outage and even check to see when your power might be coming back on.
Exactly. You mentioned that you guys are using our outage map. If you go to our website, lge-ku.com/storm, you can view the outage information there, and that can keep people up to speed. Of course, when you don't have power, that's one thing, but you can access that on your mobile device as well, so you can stay up to speed that way.
Thank you so much, Natasha Collins. I know you'll be keeping a close ear and eye on things throughout the night. As
here on where that storm is and what to expect as this moves across the city. Storms moving through right now almost into New Albany, so expect near 50 to maybe 60-mile-an-hour winds. You know, I will say this, I don't think this is a high-end severe thunderstorm at all, but Floyd's Knobs right now through Lanesville and Webster, the storm is moving across. Putting a track on this, giving you a time frame when to expect, and I will say loosely up to 60-mile-an-hour winds. 3 minutes in New Albany, 9 minutes in downtown Louisville, J-Town 27 minutes, LaGrange 30, and Eminence at around 44. I don't think we're looking at widespread power outages or anything like that, but I do think we'll get some tree limbs going down as this moves across the area. More in just about 5 minutes.
All right, thank you, Mark.
Got a lot of things to talk about here. We have the flash flood watch that remains in effect, the flood warnings that remained in effect for Lawrence, Jackson, and Jennings County. We also have a wind advisory in effect until 1 a.m. We have a tornado watch in effect through midnight, and we have severe thunderstorm warnings. I will tell you there's a lot of counties. Jefferson, Trimble, Scott, Clark, Oldham, Jefferson, Floyd, Harrison, Meade, Breckenridge, and Grayson County under a severe thunderstorm warning. Southern part of our area, Taylor, Greene, and Adair County. When I talked to you earlier today, I told you that we were going to get a lot of warnings on this system, and we are. What I also said is normally in this scenario, you don't get huge destructive swaths, and we're not seeing that. I think from a storm perspective, the system's kind of going as planned, and I agree with the National Weather Service for what it's worth for warning this line. We got reports out of Pekin that there were tree limbs going down, and you just have to protect yourself in these scenarios. So North Vernon, the storm has now cleared your area, but in Madison, we've got 60-mile-an-hour winds moving right towards you. It should be in your area in the next, I would say, 4 to about 11 minutes. Saluda about 7 minutes from now. New Washington, severe in your area. Charlestown through Silver Creek up to 50 and maybe 60. And I'm going to say these are marginal severe winds because I think we're going to be talking about between 50 and 60. Downtown Louisville, the wind should be hitting here in 3 minutes. From PRP along Dixie, 2 to 3 minutes. There was one lightning strike here. A little bit of a notch here that's developed along the Waterson. That could produce some stronger winds. If you're joining us from Muldrow or West Point, the strong winds are right over you right now. Radcliffe, about 22 minutes, expect the stronger winds. Litchfield right now, very strong winds moving into the western part of Hardin County here. And what you're noticing is the southwestern part of the line, they are allowing the warnings to expire here. So the Litchfield, the Breckenridge, the Hardin part of that warning, that county being allowed to expire. We have just heavy rain right now from Willisburg and Lebanon, and a very strong area from Cane Valley through Columbia that is likely to produce 60-mile-an-hour winds. And in my opinion, I think this is the strongest part of that line. Like I said, the Weather Service almost handcuffed in a sense on this kind of line because it's going to produce some wind damage, and I think they just want to protect and let you know what to expect. In Louisville right now, we've got 65 degrees. We've got a south wind at 17 miles per hour. Looking around the area, it gets a lot colder. Behind the front, it's already 47 degrees in Evansville, and the dew points are dropping off quickly, but we saw that surge ahead of the line. Now, advanced track showing by around midnight into the eastern part of our area. We're seeing things shut down, and by 4 o'clock, everything is gone. So looking at the forecast for tonight, there's still a high chance, 90% will drop back to a low of 36. I don't think we're talking about a severe weather monstrous outbreak in terms of intensity of winds, but we're going to get warnings here. 53 tomorrow, another windy day with a west wind at about 15 to 25, and then over the next 3, Saturday, Sunday, I've got temperatures in the 50s, but if you're looking for warm in the extended, I've got cold. I'm going to tell you when to expect temperatures to drop back into the 20s for highs coming up in about 5 minutes. Well, we've got severe thunderstorms moving into the metro area here. At least I will say borderline severe. Jeremy and Rick here have been kind of manning our social side of things. So if you're looking for more information online, remember you can always find us on Facebook or Twitter. Mark Weinberg, it's Mark with a C, and we'll continue as these guys update you. Let me update you now here so you know what to expect as we move into the nighttime hours here. Advanced track showing as we move towards Sunday, things are going to quiet down, but there's still some things to talk about before we get to that point here. So we'll start off with the warnings here. A new warning was issued for Louisville, and I'm going to defend the Weather Service here and tell you what they did. They issued a warning because it's a borderline severe thunderstorm moving into our metropolitan area. And I think the way they feel is while the storm may be weakening, they just want to protect themselves, and I can't really argue with that. We've got a wind advisory that goes until 1 a.m., and as we look across the line here, the severe threat looks like it's going down. It really does. But in Madison here, we're looking at some strong winds of 50 to 60. Again, I'll call them borderline severe. In New Washington, borderline. In Louisville here, you can see this is about to hit the airport, and this is kind of important because we'll get some real measurements. In the western part of Jefferson County, we did see a 50-mile-an-hour wind gust from PRP, and remember, we've got limbs here that have been weakened from the windstorm, so some of those limbs could go down. This puts it in the J-Town area in 11 minutes, 17 minutes Mount Washington, 23 in Simpsonville, and 31 in Shelbyville. Again, I'll tell you, it is borderline. This is lower end. This area on the southern part is weakening. Why? Well, it's running into the rain-cooled air from the initial line that's now moving across the Columbia area. Willisburg through Lebanon, just rain, and then we've got that stronger storm that's moving through Columbia and out of Adair County. All in all, I don't think we're looking at a high severe weather threat. I think we're just talking about still getting warnings, and I think we're probably going to see those decrease off here shortly. Blizzard in Iowa, producing 7 inches of snow in some areas with winds to 60 miles an hour. Now, this is what it looks like outside in downtown Louisville, and what you're going to see is our winds have now shifted to the west. You can see probably looking at 40, 45-mile-an-hour winds in downtown Louisville. I don't think it looks like it's a higher-end threshold severe weather. Looking at our temperature here, we're still at 65. Winds are gusting to 26, and they're probably going to gust to 45 or 50. Behind the front, 42 from St. Louis, 32 right now in Des Moines. So it gets a lot colder behind the system, and the dew points drop off. So from a severe standpoint, this is it. Advanced track pushes that line through. By 1 a.m., all of the severe is out of the area, and by 3, things are just quieting down. Now, during the day tomorrow, high temperature is going to come in at portions of Adair County. Okay, Adair County now just went under a tornado warning here. So, Jessica, I just want you to let you know we're going to need to stay with weather here a little bit longer. Jeremy's going to take us back over to radar here. Tornado warning was just issued for the just extreme eastern part of Adair County. And we've got that up on the screen here for you. This only covers basically a sliver of Adair County, just a sliver. I want to look. We've got Jeremy again manning the social side of things. Jeremy caught that. And what we're going to do is I want to take you over and look inside the storm from a rotational standpoint and assess whether that has actually moved out of the area before I'm going to release. We've got the rotation here. That area of rotation, Jeremy, I'm looking at it here on, it looks like that area of rotation's crossed out of the county line. So what I want to do is probably stay with this for just a minute or two more. So Jessica, just letting our producer know we're going to stay with this for probably about a minute because the area of rotation is moving out of Adair County. Remember, our viewing area ends at Adair County. I'm not saying in Jamestown or Russell Springs or if you live in Ely, Kentucky, it is time to take tornado safety precautions because there is definitely rotation. But from our countywide standpoint, we have to release when it leaves our area here. So if you live in Russell Springs, if you live in Ely, if you live in Jamestown, please take your tornado safety precautions. While this has probably been one of our stronger storms in our line here, I don't think we're looking at an inevitability of producing a tornado, but I see rotation in there enough that does support that tornado warning here. So Glens Fork, I think you are out of it. It has moved east to your area. And before I finish off this weather, I think that's out of our viewing area. So from our standpoint, what we're going to do is continue along here. And I want to give you one look at the extended forecast before we end this thing off. I've got Saturday and Sunday with a 20%, Monday 43 degrees, turning much colder on Tuesday at 29 with a low of 20. Now, if we see any signs that that tornado warning will threaten Adair County, I will come right back in here with another update.
All right. Thank you, Mark.
Watching the storms here closely move across the city, and we want to let you know what we're seeing here. We also talked about the tornado warning for Columbia, for the Adair County area. The area of strong winds in Louisville, probably 50 to 60 mile an hour, would be now approaching Anchorage area, around Worthington, would be approaching the Polo Fields, and then J-Town, and then crossing Hurstbourne right now. We've got some of those strong winds, probably 50 to 60. I don't see that as a huge threat. Jeremy's been in here with me tonight monitoring things on radar as well. And Jeremy, you're looking at that storm in the Adair County area. I think that the rotation's out of the county. What are you thinking?
It absolutely is, Mark. It looks like the rotation now moving off to the east, and really you're just seeing rain and a little bit of lightning and thunder there near Columbia. That rotation is not in the county anymore.
And from a standpoint of Louisville, Jeremy, we've talked a little bit here, but I think we're talking probably 50 to 60. Nothing that, to me, that looks like high-end severe. Your thoughts?
No, absolutely. We've been watching this line over the last half hour or so, Mark. It has been steadily weakening, and hopefully that trend does continue.
We'll continue to watch it here. We'll have updates for you on Facebook and on Twitter as the storms continue to move across the area. Remember, if you're in eastern Jefferson County right now, you could see winds of 50 to 60 miles an hour. This is not a high-end severe threat. It is a lower end, but still you can get some stronger winds. And I think the National Weather Service in this particular scenario just feels like it's better to err on the side of caution. The trees have kind of been weakened by some of the ice that we saw over the last couple of weeks. We'll continue to watch it. If anything gets threatening or if we feel concerned, we'll be right back in the programming.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you, Mark.